So yesterday I came across this passage from the book Show Your Work, 10 Ways to Share Your Creativity and Get Discovered by Austin Kleon. Overnight success is a myth. Dig into almost every overnight success story and you'll find about a decade's worth of hard work and perseverance. Building a substantial body of work takes a long time, a lifetime really, but thankfully you don't need that time all in one big chunk. So forget about decades, forget about years, and forget about months. Focus on days. So essentially the idea here is to do something every single day that will further your cause. And I started to think to myself, well, out of the many reasons why I started In the Khud, one big reason was the fact that I wanted to document my life in real time. So now when I go back to the channel and look at all those days where I was doing a daily vlog and I can see my progress on, let's say, the ice cream project, the Magnum ice cream project, every single day I was learning a few things and documenting that. That is what really adds value, in my opinion, to make things easier this time around. What I am doing is In the Khud with an OBS edit. So thus far the video that you've been seeing has all been edited using OBS. So there are two sections I want to talk about: pre-world and post-world. This is like pre when the world wakes up and post when the world wakes up. This is the most important part for my day. Pre the world wakes up, which is like 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. Today morning when I woke up, I had this very strong desire in me that In the Khud has to be a daily thing, and so I want to get rid of that entire resistance of editing the videos, when taking into Premiere, setting up multicam, doing a ton of things before I can actually get to editing the sequence. So the best thing that I thought can be done is do a live perform edit inside OBS, and lo and behold, we're doing it. So here I want to just go about explaining you a little bit about how I've set up OBS. So I'm going to bring my OBS screen over here and you're going to see that it's going to go into an infinite thing here. So you see there are black bars over here, which is supposed to be my 2:1 check, because this video is in 2:1. That's a long story. It's a cinematic preference really. Now if I press G1 through G6, G1 brings me to my camera 1. You see there are these camera 1s and I'm switching through a cut scene transition. G2 brings me to this screen where myself, I'm here at the bottom and there's a screen which you were just seeing. G3 brings me to camera 1 with a zoom in, so I'm going to be talking normally and then zoom in for effect. And then G4 brings me over here into like a Blender friendly screen, because if I look at my Blender screen, I don't want to be hiding a lot of things inside Blender, so I'm going to just be right about here, so that's easier to manage things. For when I'm in Notion, I can stay at G2, that's completely alright. OBS is a truly beautiful software. Out of the things that I just showed you, they're just like scratching the surface of how capable that software is, and there is a learning curve to it. Like I'm going to get used to the idea of editing and performing and at the same time editing the video, but I'm sure I'll get used to it. Now post the world wakes up, 11:51, I have about 40 minutes to figure the full-time job 3D video render out. Now waking up after nap is usually a headache, but it gets better with time. I have to go to the vet at 1 p.m. for Snowy. We took Snowy to the vet because there was some ear infection. At 3 p.m. the RTX card install guy will be coming. So that's the second big news for today, that RTX 3060 Ti is finally in the house. It's in the system, and I'll put like a recording I took of the installation, and I will get to Blender and I'll show you how things are working out right now. At 2:18 there was a need to switch to Dad's work for some last urgent situation, but I figured that out thankfully. The scene that I've been working on in Cycles, you heard it right, I'm gonna show you this screen in Cycles. I have just put a gradient in the world shader behind in such a way that it does not affect the scene lighting. But the most interesting thing I want you to see here is the node tree. This is the first time I've made exclusive use of geometry nodes for an entire project of this sort, and this is all procedural in the sense that currently the building has 33 floors, which you can see over here as a modifier. If I was to, however, make this building 50 floors tall, that is gonna procedurally happen. I don't have to do anything. The clubhouse floors here at the bottom, just above the podium, are the clubhouse floors, to which I've given an emission shade. I have to probably work on the materials a bit, but if I was to increase the clubhouse floors, okay, you see that this is happening, but the pillars are not going along. That's not something I've thought about yet, but I have to add proceduralism to the pillars. The thing is, for this particular animation, I don't need the proceduralism. I just did it because I wanted to. And the same is with the podium floors. Let's say there were 3 podium floors instead of 5, so that will happen. Real part of this animation is gonna be the animation which I discussed in the last video I put out yesterday on the channel. And for that I will go to solid mode, because even with rendered view, it's a bit of, even with the RTX, it's a bit taxing, because if you look at it here, you probably cannot see it, so I will have to mess up with my Blender screen a bit. If you look at here, I have over 1 million triangles in the scene, and that is a bit of a problem. Show you the animation part in solid view. So essentially what is happening is it's scaling up. That's all that is happening. Maybe I can stay in rendered. Surprisingly, rendered is a little easier on the viewport than material preview for some reason, because materials are a little heavy, especially these climbers and everything. You see there are geonodes. Okay, yeah, I can probably go about explaining how I've made this whole thing, but it's, well, you see, building floors and everything are very basic here. There are math nodes and transform nodes which are doing the whole structure. The most important thing here, I feel, is the podium floors. So for the podium floors, the top floor, this is basically an instance of 5 stacks which I'm referencing on a mesh line. On the top floor of the podium, I wanted to have a climber structure and some trees instanced behind. So from the main geometry, I made a separate geometry using index equal to, over here, 5. So the count -1, and then that is the top podium, and here you have hanging climbers. So I've used instance on points, but 2 times. To the same separate geometry, I've added 1 instance on points, which distributes points on faces mesh, and it uses a named attribute called foliage. So on this podium, I have added 2 vertex groups. One is of foliage. Should I go ahead and show it? Okay, just this one part I will quickly show. So the podium, if I was to go into the edit mode of the podium and select my vertex groups, there are 2 vertex groups. So foliage is, if I was to select this part is the foliage or foliage. Okay, this is the vertex group, and trees is this part. I think it's behind. So these 2 layers, I can actually probably select this for the trees assign, and if I was to select trees now, I would get this as well. So this I'm gonna remove. So if I select trees now, it's gonna be the inside. Hopefully this shouldn't mess things up. Now if I go back to my main node tree, you will see that the trees have supposedly gone behind. Yeah, they have. They were too much towards the edge, and they are not rotated correctly for some reason. So I'll just fix that. Rotation of the trees on, or is this how it should be? Seems like this is how it is. I can obviously change the collection that is going in here, but yeah, this is how I made those 2, and I added a set material here because I wanted to have a different material to the whole of the stack. And for that also I figured one thing out, but it's not very much clear as of now. It's probably show that in tomorrow's video. And this approach, I was trying to separate the ground floor and then have a thing here, but that delete geometry thing was not working, and realizing instances was becoming a sort of a problem. So I went against that. So what happens is you have these controls here, which I have to make I have to make these controls as integer, not floats, because float tends to take a lot more time to come up. So if it's integer, it's a lot faster. I'm gonna go to solid view just so it's a little easier. I have to add that functionality to the ground floor, but this is how the podiums will come up. This is how the pillars will come up. Yeah, this is kind of weird. It's working from a negative value. So from negative something, it's gonna go up like this. Same is gonna be happening with the elevator in the middle, right? This will happen, and most importantly, I'm gonna twist the floors from 2 pi to this. So this is gonna be like a very cool sort of effect, that as they're scaling up, it's gonna be twisting in and coming in like that. So you can see right now I have added a camera on a track path, and this by the way is looking pretty neat at the moment. You know, you have like a sci-fi kind of thing happening, and being able to have this render come up in just 4 seconds is magical, because if I was to look at my task manager, RTX 3060 Ti, that is what we're dealing with, RTX 3060 Ti. And on my camera there is this yellow tint kind of thing which comes from Samsung cameras, and I cannot fix that because I cannot color grade the footage. So I'm just gonna go ahead with this and hope that it's working fine. One thing that I also have to worry about is the sync and fine, like the mic and the camera. There seems to be some sort of lag over here. A lot of things I will discover about this technique once I actually edit the video, and as I do this process more and more, I'm gonna get more and more familiar with the idea of how can I think performance plus editing at the same time, so that it saves a lot of my time and I can just straight away run to the gym. That's it for today's documentation. Thank you so much for being in the khud. I'll catch you tomorrow. Peace.